Hello class, today I'm going to be explaining to you guys about the college education crisis or the tuition crisis, and I chose the problem and solution aspect of it. So let me get right into it here. So for starters, I read this article by Adam Davidson called "Is College Tuition Too Expensive or Too High?" And the short answer to this article heading is yes, and here are some reasons why we should lower it is because here are some reasons why we should lower it, and one being everyone has something to gain from it. Education has this it has this effect. It has this tendency to where it's called the multiplier effect, where the more people that we're surrounded by that are educated, the more everyone has to gain. Um, Everyone has something to gain from lower college tuition, making it so that more people become educated and more people in that circle of educated people are more beneficial to society. And without access to greater education, the socioeconomic disparities in our country continue to rise and expand, which obviously isn't good because it creates the 1%. And that 1% obviously you don't know how they get their money, but some of them legitimately go to school and do great things. And with more people that have education, that topper shelf of people who have money can expand and create jobs for other people. Now, another source that I have is A Race Between Education and Technology by Lawrence Kalt and Claudia Golden. And in their book, they explain the effect of inflation and how that affected the cause and rise tendency of college education, which again isn't good because not only now people are trying to afford education and buy cars and have houses and things that everyone wants to do in life. Now education is in their way because obviously because of college debt and other college debt, and also prices of like books, housing, and all that stuff. When that adds up, you're spending about like 30,000 away from a year away from out of state, and about 20,000 to 15,000, 15 to 20,000 in state. Now we can obviously see how this is a problem from maybe 50 years ago when the inflation wasn't as high as it was today. However, the wages were much lower, and the inflation disparity or the inflation gap between how much we actually make plus how much things actually cost in reality, they aren't matching up, making it even harder for us to afford education. In their book, they explain how inflation hurts the American people and how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And you can also see how this affects the education disparity, because if you have people who have education people who have money are able to afford education without second thoughts. People who don't have education but who want to acquire it now have to work a job and do things to supplement to help themselves afford it, which can also be an aid to them dropping out of college later on. Another another reason why we should have cheaper education is because if education continues to become more expensive and unattainable, the American dream that everyone comes to this country to chase and people who are already here look to have isn't it's not a it's not a reasonable like goal to reach, because you have to go to work and survive for that month. You know what I mean? To like pay your bills and all that. Once you factor in time that it takes to study and have education and go to school, people can't work it into their 24-hour days or their monthly lives. And because of that, that hurts the average number of people who go to college and finish college with a degree. The cost of education has also risen due to the rapid technological advances that we've been making. So compared to about 50, 75 years ago, every year that a student graduates from high school, it requires another 2 years of their succeeding our junior classmates to graduate because information was constantly being discovered during the 1900s. Nowadays, that's true, but not as true to where we need to have another 2 years of schooling. Um, this you can obviously see how that affected them back then, but now that isn't the case. However, we're still paying for it out of pockets. Back then, they weren't as much because education it wasn't free, but it was also affordable due to how much they were making and how the government was making active policies to make education attainable. Because 100 years ago, 75 years ago, less than 10% of the American population had high school diplomas. During the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, they got closer to most people, if not all, but most. Nowadays, we're starting that decline again, where not everyone's graduating from high school with a diploma, let alone attending a community college. The cost of going to college has risen at nearly 5 times the rate of inflation over the last 50 years. This is another article that I read by Winstead, Scott Winstead. And in this article, he explains that although an inflation is inevitable, the wage distribution isn't met by this fact, meaning that, like I said before, the more people that go to work and come home every day and divide their money how they're going to spend it for that month isn't not some people don't have enough to put away for college. So again, they have to call upon government aid and loans, and that only can come back and hurt them in the end, unless they're receiving, like in some cases, free full rides from the state, which is good. But many argue that if everyone was on this free college program, which I'll talk about later in this video, then there wouldn't be much distinction between colleges and classes that people are taking, and it wouldn't, and Harvard would be the same as VVC essentially, and that's what people are trying to avoid by saying that free college isn't okay. According to the okay, sorry. So the college, making college free would only hurt the market of innovation and make the cost of make the cost of tax-paying citizens go way up, because now that college is free, it's more like a socialist kind of system. There wouldn't be much diversity between colleges, like I was saying before. So, this article that's published by PBS, I don't know the author's name of the article, but I know the publisher was PBS, was saying that it was a woman. She was saying that if more people are attending colleges, there wouldn't be much distinction between the colleges. That they'd be all we learn the same information. Now, this is a problem because not only is it now free, and not only are the taxpaying citizens paying for this education, there wouldn't be much. There'd be way more like competition for jobs in the market with everyone with the same amount of education. People have to pay for higher education who can actually take the time and seriously take account for their time doing it, compared to those who are just doing it just to get by. And one counter argument for not having this kind of not having this kind of educational system is that people could take the time or take the free ride of college, but not everyone's gonna make it again, because there's always reasons why people won't finish college, free or not. Maybe because they just don't have the mental time, the capacity. Maybe they don't have the time. Maybe they don't. That's not what they want to do in life. But those who will get that far in college and through life, using school, they only have everything to gain to our society. So having more educated individuals is never a bad thing. It shouldn't be a matter of competition or who's gonna make more money later on. It's all about innovation and having our country be the furthest going. Again, referring back to the Adams article about inflation in our countries for tuition during the 90s, 80s, and 90s, America was had the number one most college going and high school graduates in the world. Since then to 2015, we've dropped to number 14. So that only goes to show you how the cost of education is really stopping this country from being what it used to be and what it could be going forward with all these technological advances that we're coming up with. Now, with that being said, how can we solve this problem? Obviously, the one thing that Americans have always had the power to do since the creation of this country was to vote. Who you vote for obviously matters, and it matters in the sense that their views on reform of the educational system would only take this country as far as it can go. And if we keep voting for people who are gonna make these changes and make education cheaper, if not free, we only have everything to gain from that. Thank you guys for listening. Oh, and for my visual aid, I wanted to show this graph of how much college tuition has risen over the years. I'm gonna post it in the comments for anyone who wants to take a look at it. And basically, it explains the actual amount of. So, for example, if college without inflation costs $10,000, let's just say for going to school in state college, the full price of going to college for your GE courses will be $10,000 for the year. Now, this is without inflation. Now, with inflation, and considering the wage disparity that we have in this country today, the cost would be somewhere where 15-20,000, and that's how the graph is set up. And it'll show you the difference between in-state, out-of-state, with inflation, without inflation, and the different margins of how much you make in each year. So, thank you guys for listening. Hope this video was pretty persuasive to why we need to make education reform about making tuition lower. Thank you guys.